Alrighty, so everyone take a quick stretch. We're almost halfway through our presentations today. So you guys are champs for hanging in there. Appreciate your time today. Thought it would kind of warm things up with a little comic in here. Budgeting is not the most pleasant experience for most of you. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump over to our slides here. Go ahead and present mode. Amy, can you see the screen okay?
Yep, it looks good.
Okay. Alrighty. So Dynamic Budgets is a budgeting, forecasting, and reporting solution for Acumatica. We've been in the ERP space for about 15 years. We started with the Microsoft Dynamics GP and NAV. We've migrated over to Sage Intacct, Oracle, and Acumatica over the last few years as we've been supporting our customers as they transition off of Dynamics GP into the cloud ERPs. Acumatica is one of the easiest platforms for us to integrate with. We leverage the generic inquiries, export and import scenarios, and it's a real pleasure to be able to work with the Acumatica system. Not to say that we can't do it with other systems, but the other systems tend to be a lot more steps for integration. What we're focused on right now is want everyone to think of one primary question. Do you struggle to involve your non-technical, non-financial managers in the budget process? We are a sophisticated budgeting solution. We have a lot of finance teams using this as a tool for centralized budgeting purposes. But our sweet spot is when you are trying to reach out to the unwashed masses of your Excel challenged operating heads to get them involved in the process and to get them to itemize their budgets. Typically, we're in a rush. It might be a 3-month ordeal to create a budget. By the time you grit the budget, it gets board approved. Half of the assumptions that were in there are out of date and no longer apply. That's the typical kind of complaints that we hear from our customers. A lot of our customers are transitioning off of Excel-based processes where you've got tons and tons of spreadsheets flying out to your department heads. Somebody in finance has to essentially collect those, aggregate those, put them into a master import file, then import those back into the system, run your financial report, see where you're at. It's just a big process. We have basically centralized and automated that whole process. I was a finance professional. I worked for a public traded company. At our peak, we had 600 Excel files, 600 departments with Excel files dedicated to each fund. And it would take me weeks of time just to prepare those, get those out, and try to collect them back. So what we want to do is really focus on budgeting using a tool, cut the amount of time that it takes to process everything, be able to use the tool, not just put this on the shelf and forget about it till next year to actually use the same budgeting and reporting tool to review your monthly budget to versus actual budget variances, and then take notes in the system as to why you were over under. Those notes can then come back in to help you reforecast or to enter your next budget. What sets us apart is really speed of implementation. We built a better mousetrap. I was that frustrated user that couldn't said it couldn't take this much time, be that expensive, and be that complicated that we can't involve end users. There's got to be a better way. Searched the marketplace, couldn't find a solution, so we built one. Like Acumatica, we have an unlimited user license. So if you had 15 people involved in budgeting and another 30 people could use this as a reporting tool, great. But we are also humble. We realize that our sweet spot is collecting and processing the budget data. The Acumatica has a very robust set of reporting tools that you may want to keep in place. If you want to keep in place, if you have something more sophisticated like Power BI or Tableau, go ahead and continue to use those reporting tools. We're focused on collecting and processing the budgets, and we give you convenience reporting so you don't have to leave the tool to see where you're at, but be able to continue processing. A lot of our end users actually say they like the budgeting tool. Very hard to get that out of end users to say they actually enjoy using the tool, but they do. Um, we have a standardized interface. Why are we so fast to implement? It's a standardized interface. It's easy to mass deploy to large numbers of departments. So we have some small not-for-profits with maybe 10 departments. Usual customers get hundreds departments. Our largest customers get about 30,000 cost centers. So the battle tested with very large organizations. We have very loyal customers for the partners on the call. Our GP customers have typically been using the product for about 10 to 15 years now. As they continue to use the product, that they're really excited about being able to have some sort of continuity between GP and Acumatica, be able to have a familiar interface that users continue to use the same interface that they've been using for budgeting and reporting. And that's just we're seeing about 97% retention rate. Just a quick sample of some of the types of customers. We work across professional sports, faith organizations, a lot of healthcare customers, insurance providers, not-for-profits, industry associations, and such. We have typically we'll set up, we are a standalone application. We sit outside of Acumatica. It is a dedicated Windows desktop application. We have scheduled refreshes. We typically will refresh the data nightly from Acumatica. We don't want to overburden the system with continual transaction hits. We're typically doing this once a night. Some of our customers will actually do this periodically throughout the day. One of our customers even updates every 15 minutes. So it's up to you how often you want to refresh the data. I'm going to kind of glance over this, but this is kind of the typical data entry screen. You're starting from what looks like a financial report. You have the ability to drill down and itemize your requests for your budgets for the next year. The bottom half of the screen has links to show you the prior historical spend. And at any point in time, you can click through and look at the transaction details that are coming up from Acumatica. When we go to payroll options, I'll show this to you, but we have a monthly salary oriented screen. We have an hourly oriented screen. It depends on which language your end users speak, whether they think in terms of FTE percentages or if they think in terms of hours per pay period. We also have a dedicated shift scheduling third payroll module for the 24/7 operators in healthcare and hospitality. I'm just going to go ahead and jump into the product here and show you a live demo. Okay. All right, so our typical interface is going to look like this. You're going to start off with a search. You could search from one of your departments. If you have access to more than one department, you might see a roll-up of multiple departments. I could go into any individual department, or if I was an administrator, I could search the entire company. I'm looking at my account and sub-account combinations here on screen. If you have branches in Acumatica, some of our customers will treat the branches as a company and have a sort of separate, segregated interaction by entity. And some of them treat it as just a single Acumatica instance, one single company, and then they treat the branches as part of the definition of what we call an organizational unit. So they might have branch on this roll-up, and then they might have the sub-account over here, or the multi-segmented sub-account over here at the department and cost center and location levels. In here, I've got a laundry list of all my accounts to choose from. This could have been structured as a financial report. I've shown a couple of years of actuals, my current year forecast, my next year budget. It depends on how complicated you'd like to make the screen. If you'd like to apply some formatting, you want to see, roll this up and see where are we at. You don't have to consolidate or aggregate anything. If you had done a company-wide search, you just simply turn on report formatting. And if you want to see where you're at top level, let's go ahead and drop this down to my top level categories and revenue, COGS, personnel at the company level. This is what we look like. If I wanted to change that perspective and look at this from a department P&L, I could change this and look at maybe my departments, sales, ops, and admin, then drill down into my locations, then drill down into my account categories. We didn't have to change the reports and change this on the fly. We can just kind of just do this on the fly without having to rerun the reports. When I go back to my raw laundry list, I might be able to use this filtering and jump down to my rent accounts and drill down into my account for my rent at the New York location. And I've itemized rent cam security and maybe even put in provision for a lease escalation starting in the beginning of next year. That end user at the bottom, if they had any questions about their prior performance, could actually click into the bottom of the screen, drill down, and look at some of the transaction details coming back from Acumatica. When they're done with the budget, they could go ahead and imagine that we've closed the budget. We're coming back in here month over month and reviewing our performance. You could come in here and run a variance report. And I'm just going to filter and look at my rent account specifically. I was concerned about rent New York. We've got a $5,900 variance in here. I could double click to try to analyze what was going on with my variance. I'd see a split screen in my transaction details versus my budget. And then I can drop in and comment in here. And why was I over under for the month? How am I going to be able to recover by year end? And next year, should we do something different? We can drop in those explanations in there. They would show up here on screen when we refresh the screen. And then more importantly, next time we go to budget that account, our notes can be sitting there to help us influence and make better decisions in that next forecasting or budgeting cycle. So down here, I can see the history of the account, but I can also look back and see if I left myself any notes. We forgot to rent floor 2 in the budget. We're going to be over budget. Go ahead and bump that up next year by 2,000 every month. So you could come back in here and say $2,000 for my next floor in my next forecast, renting floor 2. We have the ability, so our reporting in here is relatively plain and simple, but you have the same rows, same columns of data that you can get in your more formal board reports. Might not look as pretty, might not be the same same formatting capabilities, but we do have the ability to work with Power BI, Tableau, and such, and you can embed those reports within our product. So if you wanted to look at budget versus actuals, KPIs, dashboards, or report cards and such, you can structure those right here. I've got a lot of other features. I can be sort of the Energizer Bunny and keep going and going and going. I'll just let you know that we have a lot of robust tools to import data in from Excel, to duplicate your budget in its entirety, to go from the original company to your original budget to your next budget is just a couple of button clicks away to make a duplicate. Over here is our chart of accounts management. We have a number of different allocation calculators, payroll, and I'll touch last on security. End user security can come down to different roles. The end users can be granted access to certain menus, end user menu functionality in the left and administrative functionality in the right. You can grant somebody access to payroll, but none of the financial management tools. So if you want to have a payroll person just work payroll, you could, or vice versa, you could have a finance person who's excluded from payroll. We can go down to grant explicit permissions at the company level or at the individual department levels with read, write, approve, and different confidentiality settings from non-sensitive all the way up to DEFCON 5. More than happy to go into more details in the direct demo. Thank you very much for your time today. And Amy, I'll turn this back over to our next presenter.
Thank you so much. We're almost halfway through with today's Acumatica demo day.